If you hadn't guessed from the title and that intro, this video is about the various issues on the Astra H VXR. But before we still have the garage in boxes, and you may remember a couple of videos ago when I lowered the E90, I ordered a new workbench to go in the garage, and that is arriving tomorrow. So I need to organise this mess so it's got somewhere to go. I'm going to have a little bit of a reshuffle because I think the toolbox would make more sense to go by the door just because of the width of it and how far it sticks out. I think the workbench will cross over the door a lot more. So let's have a bit of a shift around. So I've changed my mind. The box is pretty much staying where it is, except I'm going to put the compressor in the corner there because that sticks out the most. I've decided this because actually the box I think is going to stick out just as far as the workbench. Either way, the workbench or the toolbox is going to come out beyond the frame of the door, so there's a chance of knocking into it. I'd rather damage the workbench by knocking into that than the toolbox. So this makes sense. The only thing is the lead for the compressor doesn't reach plug, but that is an easy fix. I'm liking the toolbox on this side. I've found a neat storage solution for the hose there. Now we're just waiting for the workbench to fill that gap. So let's put it in with a bit of YouTube magic. Here it is, the UK Workbench's workbench, £360 for 1m20 length bench. There's various options you could have got, like drawers and cupboards. It all adds to the cost, and as nice as these things are, I don't think they're necessary for how I will be using it. Nice and solid, just like what I used to have back in the day at the Vauxhall garage. Cool, so I need to have a bit of a tidy up, start using the bench, although for now probably going to be putting the boxes back on the bench, or on the bottom bit anyway. The next bit I need to do is sort out some shelving up here for things like grease and the rusty penetrant spray and paints and brake cleaner and stuff like that. I haven't got around to doing that yet because I just wanted the bench in to see what that looked like to appreciate the space. But for now, let's get this tidy up, let's get the Astra in and get on with the subject of this video. But before I get the car in the garage, there's one thing that cannot wait any longer, and that is these tyres, which are borderline illegal. So the legal limit in the UK is 1.6 millimeters of tread, and as you can see, particularly on this inside edge, we are actually just below that. I think that's the worst of them, but all four tyres are right on the edge of that limit. Let's go to the tyre place and get some new tyres for the Astra. What have we got on at the moment? T2540 18. Is there a brand? No, they're budgets. Let's go and tell them what we want. Got some tyres for me, let's leave it with them and come back and get it in a minute. There it is. In the works. This is the first time I've had to change the tyres on those AZ racing wheels, and I've had them nearly 3 years. I did get budget tyres because they do last longer. It proves a sensible decision. Looking fresh. And those fresh tyres are now back in the garage. And as you can see, I've got the car jacked up and the bonnet open. Because job one on the list of jobs that need doing to give this car the love and attention that it needs is a service. Now, the extent to which this car has been neglected is that I haven't done any maintenance on it since the last video on the YouTube channel, which was replacing the aircon compressor and condenser, during which I also did a service, which is the last time I serviced the car 10,000 miles ago. So let's not waste any more time, get under the car and get on with the service. And whilst we're in the middle of that, I will talk through the rest of the jobs that need doing. I think that is the neatest that I have ever changed an oil filter on these 2 litre turbo Vauxhall engines. Anyway, whilst the oil is draining, let's talk about job number 2 that needs doing. It makes sense that this is job number 2 because I'm going to do this in a minute. We have oil grease, oil seepage and mist all over the engine to the extent that it is dripping onto the driveway here, and that is not satisfactory. Job number 3. So you may remember, you may have seen, you may not have, but a while ago, a long time ago now, I did a video where I got the VXR remapped, and before I took it to the mapping place I did the BCS delete, and that is a modification that is supposed to give you a bit more boost in first gear, and the result of doing that is that some components become redundant, and I never removed those off the car, so I'm just carrying excess weight. There's bits of pipe that aren't connected to anything, and as I've got the car in the air now, I'm going to get underneath and I will remove those in a minute. Job number 4. You see in there, I've put an arrow on screen, there is a brake disc dust cover. Now let me show you this video from a little while ago. What is going on there? Can't scratch the wheel. Right. To get this out. Wow. So you see them? No dust cover on my driver's side rear brake disc. Now I don't know at this point how much labour is involved in replacing that. I haven't looked into it yet, but it is on the list. Job number 5. The bolster on my driver's seat is not in good shape. That bothers me greatly because you see it every time you get in the car. It has been like that for 2 years, so does it bother me that much? I guess not, but I want to get it sorted. Not something I can do myself, so I need to make arrangements to get the seat to an upholsterer. Job number 5. No, job number 6. Bodywork. There are various bits of bodywork that are not looking too good. I don't know, should we put this as just one category? I'm not sure. The thing is with this is that I'm not minded to do all of the bodywork. It was a couple of years ago that the car did have some bodywork done. We had the incident when Hannah put a dent in the car. That was the last time it visited the paint shop, but it had been to the paint shop previously to get it kind of back up to standard, and it did look beautiful after it done that, but now we are a couple of years down the line and bits need doing again. I think that's always going to be the case with a car of this age and a car that is used as much as this is, so I'm not expecting it to be perfect. But this lack of appeal annoys me, I guess partly because I see it every time I go to the petrol station and I'm standing here and I'm looking at that. And what makes this an easier job is that I can probably just take the spoiler off and give it to the paint shop so I can still use the car. Whilst we're still on bodywork, we've got some bubbling on the rear arches on the driver's side here and the passenger side here. Those have been done before, but the body shop did tell me that it would come back, and it has. A little bit disappointing, but the body shop did a cheap job for me, so I guess that's fair enough. And now I have the debate, do I get it done again or not? I think that's a conversation that I need to have with the body shop as to how much work is actually involved to get rid of it once and for all. Another bit of body shop work, so are we on part 6? If we are, this is like 6C. Around the rear number plate we have got a crack there. That has always been there. I guess at some point somebody has reversed the car into something. I've never been too bothered by that. My plan was to take it off and wrap it in the same matte black that I used for the rear trim here. See the video in the top right. It's just not something I've ever got around to, given all the issues that the cars constantly give me. Recently the Mocha and the E90 wrapping, which was my choice to wrap that, but some kind of repair was necessary to fix the dents in the door. And then before that we had the E46 M3 sale project, and before that we had loads of oil leaks on the E90, so something has kept me busy all of that time, so I've never got around to doing that bit of wrapping at the back. And will I get round to it? We shall see. Last bit of bodywork then that bothers me but again, the car has always had this since I had it. And that is the front splitter here has a nice big crack in it. So I need to make a decision. Do I get that done? It is again actually something that the body shop did a quick job on, just a bit of filler I think and painting over the top, but it only takes one gentle hit of the bumper, even if you just hit a bit of grass on a mound, which I used to have at the old garage, and the crack is back. Problem number 7, and I am inside the car and we have a blown speaker. Check this out. That is another issue that I've been putting up with for quite a long time. As you know from my first video, I think it was on the Astra, when I introduced the Astra and all the modifications that I've done prior to YouTube, I have screens in the back of the headrests, which is mainly for the benefit of my children so they can watch things like Charlie and Layla, but it means that I have to set the balance of the sound to the front of the car so we don't get that kind of crackling from the blown speaker. Problem number 8 is a very common one on older cars, and it is the cloudy headlights. This is a very frustrating one because you can polish it and they come up nicely, but it doesn't last very long at all. And when I took it to the body shop for the work I just talked about, they did a really good job polishing these up and they looked absolutely stunning, but it just didn't last. You can get the kits, and I have done this, where you sand the light down with various grits of sandpaper, starting from rough, getting to smooth, and then polish it. And again, it looks great, but it hasn't lasted. So I'm not really sure what to do with that, other than it just being like the man who pushes the boulder up the hill and then it rolls down again and he has to push it back up again, and it rolls down again and he has to push it back up again, and it rolls down again and he has to push it back up again, and it rolls down again and he has to push it back up again, and it rolls down again. For what I think the next problem is, I need to start the car, so I need to finish my service. Let's go. Problem number 9 then. Now at this point I don't know 100% that this is a problem, but I suspect that the exhaust might have a blow. Let's see. That is problem number 9. I actually completely forgot about that problem, so that's quite handy that that has occurred now, so I can tell you about it. Every now and then I get in the car and I turn the key, as I just did, and that happens, and you can see the light flashing. That is the immobiliser light. Now this was a problem when I was working as a mechanic on the Vauxhalls, and the solution that we used to do in the garage, if I remember rightly, there was a recall on the SIM, which is the column integrated module. That is a computer that sits just under the cowling there. I have done research since those days, because of experiencing the issue on this car, to see if there's a way I can get around it without replacing the SIM, and I believe there is. I believe the answer is to take the SIM out, take it apart, and there's 2 pins that oxidise, and if you clean those up, hopefully the problem goes away. Another symptom of that problem is that when the lights are on, it works now, but sometimes the horn doesn't work. So there you go, problem number 9. It is again something that I've experienced since I've owned the car, and the reason I haven't dealt with it is because when I turn the key now, it does start. Right, let's get under the car and see if problem number 10 is a problem, being an exhaust blow. And yes, as suspected, it is blowing right here. It doesn't even feel tight there. That's 10 things. There is one more, and the last one is the one that gives me the most concern, actually. But before we get on with that, let's deal with problems 2 and 3, shall we? So we were going to replace the cam cover, and we were going to remove the redundant parts from the BCS delete. Let's go. I need to show you this. I'm pretty sure that I mentioned when I replaced the cam cover gasket in the old video that you're looking for oil in the spark plug holes, and can you see there's a pool of oil in there in each one, which is not good. It's a bit mad that there was as much oil as that in there, given the gasket was only replaced a couple of years ago, but it must have been just a really poor quality gasket. Anyway, on we go. I shall get some brake cleaner in those holes and blow it out with the air. Ideally I'd have a kind of sucky tool that you'd use to bleed brakes, but I don't have one of those. Blowing it out is going to be my best approach, I think. I'm sad to report, but we've had a breakage. This pipe that goes onto the valve cover there and onto this valve, I've broken the valve as I lifted that up to try and clean the pipe. Bad times, I don't know how the car will run with that disconnected. I'm going to need the car, so I'm going to find out. I think there's maybe enough there that I can temporarily put it back on. Anyway, at this point, I'm going to get underneath and deal with the redundant boost parts. As a quick reminder then, the BCS delete that we did, that vacuum pipe around here, that's it there coming through. We T-pieced off that onto the fuel regulator valve there, and then goes straight into the throttle body there, meaning this pipe here goes down to the boost box, and I will now go under the car to the back of the engine. Here is the boost box, and here is that pipe that I just showed you from the top. So the rest of this is all quite circular. That is going nowhere at the moment, and the other bit goes to, there's a solenoid up there, but the rest of the pipes just go into the box. So let's get the box out. We're looking a bit tidier out there now with that excess pipe work and the boost box gone. Unfortunately, we do need to leave that solenoid plugged in. Otherwise, I've been told on another YouTube video that if it's not plugged in, then you will get a warning light on the dash. I will need to give the engine a bit of a clean underneath with the oil leakage, but I'm running out of time for now, and as I said, we've got a bigger problem to get to in a sec. So I will put everything back together, and by everything I mean put this tray back on, which I need to do while the car's in the air, and then I can drop it down. I've carefully put the valve onto the blue pipe. Whether it holds, I do not know, but I need to go away and try and source a valve. On initial look, that might be difficult. Okay, let's just put the rest of it back together then. So the reason my initial look for that valve concluded that it was going to be difficult to get one is because it has in fact been discontinued by Vauxhall. So I've ordered one that looks similar and should do the same job that I could replace the broken valve with, but actually I've done quite a few drives in the car now and there don't appear to have been any issues. And in fact, we look down there where I've tried to put the pipe back onto the little stub that was left on the valve. It has not yet moved, which makes sense of the fact that I haven't had any issues. Very few of you will have seen my last video of me ragging a Nissan Juke out in Portugal, and I've just got back from there. I say very few because I think it's probably my worst performing video to date. It's actually almost an achievement to have so few views. As of right now, it's on the grand total of 21. Woohoo! Anyway, I'm back from Portugal and we're back on to problem 11 on the Astra. From the clips at the very start of the video, I showed the battery disconnected. Where to start with this one? A long time ago, like 2 years ago, I showed me replacing the battery on this car. That was because the battery kept going flat back then and I thought the battery was dead, and actually I'm pretty sure that battery was dead, but having replaced the battery I had the same problem. When I didn't use the car for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days maybe, the battery would often go flat. So thinking I then had another faulty battery, I was able to get a replacement from Halfords at no extra cost. Halfords are good like that with the warranties that come on their batteries, but remember to keep the receipt. But same thing happened, and then you're like, well, I can't have had 3 Duff batteries surely. But just to be sure, I went and bought another battery, which is the one that is now on the car, not a Halfords one. And guess what? The battery still goes flat. So in order to prove the point that it is not the battery that is Duff, I have disconnected the battery every time I've parked the car, and apart from one occasion I have not had the battery go flat on me. Now that one occasion does give me some doubt, but actually given that I've just been away for the week, I've left the battery disconnected all that time, and I've come back and the car has started fine, no battery issues, which can only lead me to conclude that the car has a battery drain. By the way, what a contrast in the weather. You saw what it was like in Portugal, and then I come back to wet, rainy England. So we're going to run some tests now. Got the old multimeter out. When I stick my multimeter onto the positive and negative terminals of the battery, I'm getting 12.7 volts, which is good. 12.8 volts, in fact. For the next test, I'm going to connect the negative terminal back onto the battery, start the car, and we should get 13 point something volts, which will demonstrate that the alternator is charging the battery when the engine is running. Let's put the key in the ignition first. We're getting 13.7, which is a good voltage to get when the car is running. That tells me that the issue has got to be a battery drain, but we still need to prove it. Now, any of you wondering what a battery drain is, basically what it means is that when the car is switched off, something is still drawing a current from the battery. And that drawing of the current over time is what runs the battery flat whilst the car is not in use. Drawing a current means that there would be an amperage reading, and I can use the multimeter to test that. I've hooked up the multimeter to read the amps by disconnecting the negative terminal and putting the multimeter terminals between battery and the terminal there. Just use this jump lead to hold the multimeter terminal to the battery terminal, and you can see we've got 0.2 and on the 10 amp setting, which means that there is a draw of 0.2 amps in the car, which is not good. The most you'd want is 0.05 amps. The next job is to try and identify what it is that is drawing that current, and the way to do that tends to be to pull fuses from the fuse box, and as that then breaks the circuit, anything on that circuit cannot be drawing any current, so that can help you narrow down what is drawing the current. So because I have a few non-standard things on the car, those are probably the best place to start with. The first thing is in here, there is that red wire down there, and I don't know if you can see on the camera. Let me shed a bit more light on the situation. Put an arrow on the screen, but that is a fuse, and that red wire goes to the back of the car where the subwoofer is. So there's a fuse on that wire down there, so let's disconnect that and see if that is the thing. There is the fuse, and that has made no difference. So it's not the subwoofer or the amp. This is where it gets complicated, so I've had to open the door because I now want to go inside. But by opening the door, you can see that the draw is gone up to 2.57, because obviously as you open the door you get lights come on, the dash comes to life. I need to disconnect the next thing, which is going to be the screens and the headrests, and then put the car back to as it was, wait a while, let things settle down, all the lights go off inside, and see what the number is then. So you can see here that each screen has a plug there. The wire then goes into the seat, all the way under the carpet, into the back of the head unit. So I can just disconnect these on both sides. The door is shut, and we go back to the multimeter, and you see as it settles down it starts to drop again. I'll wait a bit longer until it gets to at least 0.2 and see if it stays on 0.2 or if it drops further, which would indicate that the screens are pulling a current. So this is interesting. We're now on 0.7, 0.8, flicking between the two, which is still more of a current than I'd expect it to be, because they say it should read 0.05 at worst. But unplugging these screens does seem to have made a difference. To test that theory, I'm going to plug them back in and see if it goes back to the 0.2. And the screens are plugged back in again, and we're back to 0.2, 0.19. So we might have quickly found the problem of the battery draw, although with the screens unplugged it still was at 0.07, 0.08, which is still a fraction too high, but the car is unlocked. I don't see why it should make a huge difference, but I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to unplug the screens and then I'm going to lock the car and then see where we get to. Screens plugged back in. Let's lock the car. Unlock. Lock. Whilst that's settling, here's my theory. So when I wired in the screens, which was long before YouTube, I had two options. The first option was that I could wire it so the screens had a permanent live. So I wonder if, because I wired it whereby the screens come on when the stereo comes on, but actually you can turn them on when the car's turned off, there's obviously power going to those screens all of the time, and maybe that's the thing causing the draw. So maybe I need to reverse what I did like 3 or 4 years ago. Right, how are we doing? So car is locked and we're back to the 0.08/0.07, which is still too high, but clearly the screens are making a difference. So I think what I need to do is go away and rewire the screens, and then I just need to test the car. So stop disconnecting the battery every time I plug it up and see how that goes. Okay then, so that is the head unit out. I haven't had this head unit out for a long time. I want to say since I actually put the headrest screens in, and I can't actually remember how long ago it was. Might have been 4 years ago. I did it for the kids, so I don't know. I'm going to say 4 years. Anyway, it's 4 years since this has been out, and when I look at this, I am like, what on earth is what? Because there is a unit in here that allows the head unit to be controlled by the buttons on the steering wheel, which we also did on the E90, see the video in the top right. But anyway, it is the yellow is the leads that go to the screens, but that is for the video. But I can see where the yellow wire is going in there. We've got these red and black wires coming out of these boxes, and there are 2 of those, one for each screen, going to that screen and to that screen. Right, here I am. I had these red wires which go to the screen onto the yellow, which I think is permanent live. Do you know what? I don't actually have a clue what I'm doing at this point. I think the other option must have been the red wire. So the black goes to these boxes which go to the screen. So you can see one goes off in that direction, the other goes off in that direction to either screen. I thought when I fitted these before I had tried both options, but there's no cut in that red wire there. But what's the worst that could happen? Let's splice open that red wire and just loosely attach the power for the screens to it and see what happens. So I've just put the key in the ignition and the screens are coming on their own, which is pretty much as it was before. I've just turned the ignition off and that's turned the screen off. Can I turn the screen on? No. What was the reason I didn't wire it up that way in the first place? I don't know. Right, shall we test that drawer? Because that is the real reason we're here, isn't it? Significantly losing light now outside, but we can see that we're down to the same 0.07/0.08 than when the screens were unplugged. Having said that, I've only plugged in the driver's side screen at the moment. I better go and plug in the other one. And it's plugged in and it's the same, so that's good news, I think. 0.08. So let's box the stereo back up and then I can see how it goes without having to disconnect the battery every time I park the car. We are back together. Stick the ignition in, make sure everything's working. So that is by my dash cam, which was probably my next protocol to check for battery drains. And you know, with the 0.07/0.08 reading, it's still a bit higher than we'd want it to be. Maybe that is still something I need to check out. First, I'm just going to test the car for a week or so and see how it goes. We got bluey at the front. Do we have blue at the back? Yes, we do. So we turn off. So does the screen. Let's see how that goes. 1 week has passed and we are back in the garage. The car has not let me down with the battery, but I have used it every day, so I would expect that regular usage gives it enough charge so the battery doesn't go flat, even before I rewired the screens. It does need a bit more testing, but I am sensing that maybe the battery is starting to go a bit flatter each time I start the car. You can tell when you turn the engine on, the lights just dip out on the dash. And on that one, you actually heard the starter click before it started, which is maybe an indication that the battery strength isn't quite what it needs to be. And we're still getting the amperage reading of the 0.08 on the multimeter, which, as I've said, is better than the 0.2 that it was before. So if there is a battery drain, it's a much slower drain than it was. And that might be a slow enough drain that I can live with it, but whilst I've got the bonnet open, I've got the fuse box cover off, and there's just one thing that I want to try quickly to see if I can narrow down what is actually causing the residual drain. This fuse here is for the stereo. You can always tell it's for the stereo because all of these ones with either the white or black writing are the original fuses, and this is one I've had to change before, where I've bodged wiring fitting stereos and the screens and the subwoofer and stuff, and clearly blown the fuse at some point. So I'm just wondering if I take that out and see if that impacts the amperage reading, whether we can narrow down the drain to something stereo related. Let's give it a go then. Nothing stereo related. That is interesting. Still could be the dash cam, so I'd like to try that at some point, but unfortunately for this test, the way I wired that in, I hardwired it and there's no fuse, so I'd have to cut the wire. I also can't just unplug it because in the past the connection became dodgy, so the wires going into the dash cam itself are soldered in. But I am just going to see how the car goes for now and whether I actually need to investigate the drain any further, mainly because the next problem that is really bugging me is that exhaust blow. Hopefully it's quite an easy fix, so I'm going to get back under the car and see if we can get that one done quickly. I don't know how clear it was from the clip earlier. This is where the blow is, and here, see when I rock it, this is completely loose. So where I am on the car, this is a straight pipe which deleted a silencer, if I remember correctly, and that then joins onto the sports cap there, which goes down to the engine. So first thing to do is try and get this straight pipe more that way. Ideally, I suppose it butts up against this weld here where the pipe becomes thicker, and then have another go at tightening this up. This clamp is a bit lame really, it looks quite lightweight, but I don't think I've got anything else, so I'll loosen that off, try and move the pipe up and try and tighten it up again. So this exhaust, when I bought it, didn't fit, and I had to take it to Mike Stokes in Bournemouth for him to chop it up and put it back together because it just was the wrong shape. And the problem I'm getting is to try and close the gap there means following the exhaust towards the back of the car, you can see as it goes up there to go over the rear beam, I need the exhaust to go this way, and it is going to hit on that corner there. And back to the blow site, that therefore explains why there is a gap there. So it's a balancing act of pushing this in as far as I can without the exhaust then hitting the body of the car. Fun times. I don't enjoy fiddling with this exhaust. There is quite a lot of exhaust to play with here. I've got some exhaust paste, so I'm going to put that around the edge, close the exhaust together a little bit more, but not so much that the back pipe is hitting on the body. Tighten it up and give it a test. I'm not convinced that this isn't still going to blow, but for now let's give it a test. Talking about the battery failing, that's back on charge, but I maintain that I will still continue to see how it goes using the car regularly as I am at the moment. The battery should be okay, and when I start using the E90 again, once it stops raining, then that'll be a true test of the Astra's battery drain. But it is looking quite likely that I'm going to be doing some investigation on that in the future. For now, let's see if the engine now starts. Good, I have to leave that a little while. Right, this is going to work now. I've just been filming a short on the Mocha, keep an eye out for that, but onwards with the Astra. It's still blowing. You can see it pushing the exhaust paste out there. Not the quick fix I hoped for. I think maybe I'd need to get a bigger clamp so I can tighten down on that pipe a bit harder, and also if I can get it wider, that might do the job. So that's the next plan of action. Looks like this is very much a problems video rather than a solutions video, as it seems we're still having issues with the battery and the exhaust is still blowing. So sorry about that, but before I leave you, there are a few more problems. Another bit of bodywork here where there is rust coming through on the passenger side front wing. thing. This seat belt, I have no idea how this has passed an MOT, but it's been like this ever since I've had it. So part of the MOT test is checking that the seat belts retract, and if left long enough, this might retract, though it seems to have got worse lately. But you pull it out and it kind of stays out. At some point, surely someone's going to fail out for an MOT. I am amazed that it's not failed already. So that would be problem number 12. And problem number 13 is one that we've talked about on the video when we were doing the mapping, and was the reason why we did the BCS delete, really. And that was when driving along, sometimes the car goes into limp mode, loses all boost, and the EML light comes on. I suspect that it is possibly this boost sensor here, or the turbo solenoid down there, but it is so intermittent that it's just not worth me trying to diagnose it. Anyway, clip on screen now of what the dash looks like. And with problem 13, I think that is enough for this video. I'm sure I could find more if I dug deeper, but I'm not going to. That is the list, 13 problems, of which we have dealt with the tyres, which weren't even on the list, so that was good, the service and the cam cover. And we've improved the battery drain, but probably not solved it. And we've had a go at the exhaust, but again, not solved it. So that's 3 items off the list, and I will be working through that list in future videos. And to end this video, I'm going to talk about my dilemma. So at the end of the last E90 video, there it is, I reminded you that I want a new car. The BMW M3 46 went over a year ago now, and I promised myself to replace that with something equally as fancy, and I still haven't done it. I cannot get a new car whilst I've got my 2 cars and the Mocha, so something has to give. Now the plan was with the E90 to get it basically to the position that it is in and then move it on, but having got it into the position it's in, it's quite a nice car to drive now. And then we've got the Astra, which, as per my journey so far video recently, I told you that this was the car that I wanted when I worked at the Vauxhall garage 20 years ago, and with that comes the attachment to it. It's also a faster car to drive. It's got all my modifications, including the screens for the children, so they're not going to want to see it go, but it has all of these problems. So what am I going to do? Do I carry on working through all the problems, but there might be some that they're simply not worth doing, such as some of the bodywork bits? I don't know. With that dilemma, I shall end this video now. I think it's gone on long enough, so I will see you next time. I'm not sure if the next video is going to be on the E90 or this, but whatever it is, I will see you then. I forgot to say on that battery drain point that before this video I did a short where I deleted the power sounder in the hope that that was the battery drain. Well, it obviously wasn't. As this video lands on YouTube, the channel just ticked over 500 subscribers, which is quite a significant milestone for me to have gotten to. And just want to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of those 500 people who subscribed. So thank you very much. We keep going, and maybe one day we'll get to that mythical 1,000.